Well, since our sound is ready and the slide behind you is ready, I'd like to just thank everybody for attending. This is Fire Wellness Series titled Celebrate Aging. This is the second year of this program, and I continue to be amazed at the histories, the vitality, and the wisdom of our most senior residents here. Today we will have a conversation with Elma Buttermore, a centenarian who has lived in Passavant for the past 18 years. In our audience today, she's joined by her son John. One of the sons, you probably saw one of the pictures, or a few of the pictures that he was in earlier. But before we begin our conversation, I'd just like to briefly outline a general timeline of Elma's life. Elma was born on May 20th, 1924 to Elmer and Wilma Emmerich in East Rochester, PA. She's the first of 5 children. Her siblings are Patty, Norma Jean, Elmer, and Mary Ann. Throughout her life, she loved reading and she loved school. And in 1941, Elma graduated from high school. Then in 1942, Elma married her husband, George Buttermore, who worked at American Bridge as a Navy contractor in shipbuilding. They went on to raise 3 sons, which fulfilled her dream of being a mother. As the boys grew up, she and George were very involved with the Boy Scouts, Elma being a den mother and her husband was a Cub Master. And Elma also stayed busy during that time by serving in a variety of leadership roles within her community, with a PTA, with women's groups, and other organizations. After George retired, they loved traveling together, even went to London, to Tahiti, and Thailand twice. George passed away in 1984, but Elma stayed active in her community, including acting in the local Red Barn Theater and also in the Contra Theater. In 2006, that's when Elma came to join us here at Passavant, moving into Old Main first, then New Haven Court, and then now in Mount Laurel. And during her years here, she remained active, even participating in a group, which I think is a great name for the group, called It's Laughter We're After, which provided a number of one-act plays. Elma just celebrated her 100th birthday, surrounded by her family and friends, and she's the proud grandmother of 5 and the proud great-grandmother of 11. So at this point, we're going to start a conversation with Elma. So welcome. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Yes. I'm going to start with an easy question. Tell us a little bit about your parents and siblings. And I think one good story always is how you got your name.
We lived in East Rochester, which is a borough unto itself with its own mayor and councilman and everything. And it is located on the north end of the Ohio River. And there's always a breeze there from coming up from the river where it bends towards Beaver. And not too many people know about it. I can't understand why they don't, because to me it's very important.
Tell us about your dad, the kind of work he did.
Who?
Your father, the kind of work he did.
My father.
Mm-hmm.
When they were married, I don't know what he was doing. He took an accounting course by mail, and he got a real good job at J&L.
J&L Steel?
At J&L Steel in Aliquippa.
Okay.
And we lived in a little 4-roomed home that was located on the corner of Laycock Avenue and 2nd Street.
You told me about your mother, and how they wanted children, and how
Oh,
you
well,
got...
my mother was pregnant, and Grandma, her mother, Grandma Bougardy, she was a real fuss button. And when my mother had the false labor pains that most women get about a week before they have the real thing, she got the doctor there, and of course, the doctor was a woman, Caroline Baldwin, and she couldn't handle it herself. She had to call in Dr. Guy Sugar, Sr. And my mother just had a real terrible time having me. And her body was not quite ready yet. And so it was pretty hard for her. Anyhow, they named me Elma because they didn't think they'd have any more children. They thought this would have to be the only one. And so Dad wanted somebody named for him, so they named me Elma. Then later on, 6 years later, they had a baby boy. So in our household, we had 2 Elmers and 1 Elma. And you can imagine the
confusion.
confusion.
Yeah, so your mother ended up having a total of 5 children, your mom and dad.
What?
And your parents had a total of 5 children, and then you got to be the big sister to all the rest of them.
Yes.
Now, since you were born in 1924, we talked a little bit about the Depression and whether your family was, or how your family was or wasn't affected by the Depression. What do you share about that?
I remember 1934 more than any other, because they had the Dust Bowl then. And that's when the farmers in the South were moving to California. And I think everybody's seen that movie with Henry Fonda with I can't remember what it's called, Grapes of Wrath.
The Grapes of Wrath.
Yeah, and that it was true. I mean, things were rough. They were real, just as bad as you could possibly imagine. My Aunt Ethel went to Geneva College, and she became a social worker. And she told tales that just make you weep. People living in cardboard boxes, and it was just awful.
I think you mentioned that your family was a little bit better off.
Well, my dad worked the whole time, and so.
Your family didn't have to struggle as much as some of the others?
We weren't like well off, but we made it.
What was your house like back then, as far as what modern conveniences did you have back when you were growing up, or didn't you?
We didn't have any conveniences at all. We had an outdoor toilet. We took our baths in a iron galvanized tub.
Were you first or last with the baths?
I was the last.
Yes.
And the babies were first. And then they worked up to me. I had to get in the dirty water. Well, I survived. Yeah.
What were your chores growing up?
Oh, we had to scrub the floor. I loved to scrub the floor when it was dirty.
Really?
You could see the clean and the dirty, very clean. And we had a cinder street, Lecoq Avenue at that time. And every time a car went up or down this road, a big cloud of dust would come up all over everything. And so it was really, we probably should have cleaned every day, but we didn't. It's just Saturday morning was church time. And we hurried up and got our chores done. The steps go to the Sears was always mine. That was my job, and the outhouse.
You had to clean the outhouse too?
Well, yeah,
Okay.
naturally. And as time went on, we got water. But we just had cold water. We had to heat the water on the stove. The stove was gas. It cooked with gas. And we had, I'm getting confused.
Doesn't that?
Ask me another
That's what I
question.
was about to do. You were talking about your chores.
Yeah.
What did you do after chores were finished? You seem to enjoy your Saturdays.
On Saturdays, we took our 15 cents and went down to Rochester and went to the G.C. Murphy's, got a nickel's worth of candy, got a whole bag of candy, and went to Oriental Theater and we liked to get there early so we could hear Franklin Bendel play the pipe organ. They had a wonderful pipe organ, and the Oriental Theater was very, very lush. It had crystal chandeliers and just decorated beautifully.
Do you remember any movies that you saw there?
Oh my, all of them.
All of them?
Yeah.
That was a regular thing for you to go
Clark
to.
Gable and
Yes.
Lana Turner and Joan Crawford and Betty Davis,
Mhm.
Henry Fonda. Oh, they were, I never ever thought they'd ever deserve that, you know. But I think when TV came along, it made a lot of changes.
Now, when you were a young girl, do you remember how big your wardrobe was? The clothing that you had? And
My wardrobe, when I was a sophomore in high school, consisted of 2 skirts and 2 cotton dresses that were too big for me. They were size 14, and I really took a 10. And I hated, I hated those dresses. I hated to wear them because I felt like an old woman in them. And that's all I had for a coat, of course. And I think we had a raincoat that Grandpa had given us.
And that's probably why closets in older houses are so small. People didn't have big
No, the
wardrobes.
closets were small because people didn't have very many clothes.
Yeah.
So when you think of what laundry, we didn't have big laundry like we do today.
Yeah. Now, do you have any special memories from Christmas as a young girl? Any either special family traditions or presents or
Well,
any thoughts on Christmas?
being a girl, I always got a new doll. And one year we got, three of us got, well, Mary Ann was, I don't know whether she was born yet, or she was too much of a baby to get a doll. But Mom bought us Diane quintuplet dolls, Madame Alexander, those real lifelike dolls. And mine was Emily, and Patty's was Cecile, and Norma's was Joanna.
Yes. And I looked it up. The Dion quintuplets were the first quintuplets that survived. It was in 1934. So
Yeah.
that was a Christmas present that year or the year after probably, which is, I think, so historic, such a historical marker.
And my sister Patty was born on the same day as Queen Elizabeth that just passed away.
Really? Wow. I have another question for you. I know that as the oldest child, your parents had you spend a lot of your summers at your grandparents' house. And tell us a little bit about your grandparents, and you have aunt and uncle there that were special to you, and what you did while you were there.
Oh, my mother's mother and father lived right next door to us. But my dad's mother and father lived out in Newswick Township, right up from Evans Corner. They call it Four Corners now, I think. And I was sent out there to stay about the time that my mother was 6 months pregnant, and it got to be like my home. I mean, I was there all the time, and my uncles were still in high school, and my aunt was in college. She would bring her friends, and they'd teach me all these different poems. And I'd stand up there on the table and I'd just recite those poems as nice as you please. And they get a big kick out of that. And then I stayed on the farm, until I was about 12. And then I worked for a cousin, I can't remember, Lottie Klein. Her name probably was Charlotte, and they called her Lottie. They did that in those
A lot
days.
of nicknames.
Yeah.
And did your grandmother teach you any cooking or baking?
Oh, well, my grandmama already taught me how to make cakes.
Were you good at it?
2-layer cakes, with lots of icing.
Yes.
And then pies, how to roll the dough just so it'd be soft about it. And I haven't tasted pie crust. It's good. I haven't tasted good pie crust in 18 years.
So we need to get you into the kitchen to cook somewhere, so you can taste good pie crust again.
What's that?
We need to get you into a kitchen so you can make some good pie crust.
Yeah.
Yeah. My goodness. Now, in addition to baking and cooking, you talked about going to church on Sundays with your grandparents. And you're driving in their car. Was it called an Essex?
Huh?
The car that your grandparents had.
Oh.
You said they would drive to church on
Oh,
Sundays.
yeah. That was the grandma and grandpa. Grandma drove. Grandpa never had the desire to drive.
Really?
She was the go-getter in the family.
Mm-hmm.
And the car had a rumble seat. It was just a little coupe. And I don't know how many of us there were. 3. Anyhow, we went to Grace Lutheran Church in Rochester. And I have a plaque that they gave me when I was 90 years old.
Yes.
For being a 90-year member.
That's wonderful. In addition to church, I know that you loved reading, and I think you did a lot of reading when you stayed at your grandmother's.
I read all the time. I didn't have any companionship. I was alone.
Mm-hmm.
I wandered all over the fields, and there was a pond on each side of the road. With the pond on the one side, there were guppies, little tadpoles, and I would spend hours catching with it's really sometimes something. They're all doing this. They're fast, and when it was time to go home, I'd take a tadpole in a jar,
Right.
and then my friends we'd all watch it lose its shaped tail and spout those legs out. And they get legs and arms and turn into a frog.
Now, would you keep it or would you release it into the
Oh,
wild?
we released it. We didn't kill it or anything.
Mm-hmm. Goodness, well, in addition to reading, I know that you loved school.
Yeah.
And you had told me that one of your greatest achievements happened in school. One of the ones you're most proud of.
Well, that was in 1937. In 19, let's see,
I think you were saying you were in 8th grade.
34, 35, 36. When I was in 3rd grade, I had the advantage of Aunt Ethel was a school teacher, and all that reading. And when I was in 3rd grade, I came home with my report card. I had 2 months straight A pluses, even deportment.
So good behavior.
This is really something to say. And this is not part of my life, except I have to tell you that I think they should have an award for the perfect attendance. I really big reward.
Would you have won? Or
No,
perfect
not,
to know?
not me,
Okay.
but my husband and his brother.
Yes.
His mother was a school teacher, and she raised those boys. They were had perfect attendance for 12 years.
That's incredible.
And I think that's a real,
It's a big achievement.
that's a big achievement, and it goes unnoticed.
Mhm. Well, you received an award in 8th grade.
That
when you were in
was,
8th grade.
that was it. We we were considered fourth class schools. There were 4 of them. There was one in Southside, which was North Plan, and one was Marion Hill, which was like North Rochester, and we were there, we were at one. Our whole Layhawk, our school, and they had to take a test, a written test, and so I had studied and studied, and I wondered, there was this one girl in our class that she and I were real competitive.
Okay.
And I don't know whether she stayed up late studying or what, but I decided the day before, I decided that I had studied, knew all as much as I knew. I couldn't learn anymore. I just go to sleep and have a nice rest, and so I got 100 on my math test, and we just had the beginning of algebra.
Algebra, okay.
Just tiny case. And anyhow, I had the highest score for 4 schools. And the American Legion sponsored a contest. And I got a medal that was like this,
Yes.
about half an inch thick.
Yeah.
And
Do you remember where you
ma-
displayed it? Do you remember, did you wear it, or do you remember where you
You
displayed it?
couldn't, it
Okay.
was too big. But I had a little pin. I had a little pin that I had boyfriends that I gave him that pin, and he gave me his Hawaii pin.
Yes.
So I don't have a little pin anymore.
Well, I want to just take a break for a second and ask Owen, the little button that Elma has on the other speaker has red lights on it. Is that okay that they're red?
That's okay, that means that's recording, the red
Beautiful,
light, and then
okay.
the
I
green
saw them green earlier, so
The green one just means it's on. so
perfect. Thank you.
we're good.
Everything okay?
Everything's great. I just wanted to make sure he got to capture everything for the video. Here's a fun new part of your life. How did you meet George? How did you meet your husband? And how long did you know him?
I didn't meet him, and I've known him all my life. He was the boy next door to my grandparents, and we were next door to my grandparents on the other side.
Right.
And so I just knew him
Mm-hmm.
from the time I could remember. And I can imagine that when I was born, his mother brought him over to see the new baby. He probably,
Yep. So you probably have known him all your life. Yeah.
probably.
What kind of things did you do growing up that involved George? I know that you and your grandparents, you would hang out at their house and he would come over.
Oh, we used to play cards with Grandma and Grandpa. We used to play 500. And George was my partner, and Grandma and Grandpa were partners. And that's when I was making cakes and things. And we would have to have a basic cake after we got done playing cards. And then there'd be all those corny jokes. Well, I'm glad I don't have to go over any bridges going home and that sort of thing. But we played cards with him for a couple of years.
Mhm. Well, how did he propose to you? And did you date very long before he eventually proposed?
Well, he proposed to me when I was 13,
Yes.
and he was, what would that be, 3 years older. And it was just like, we didn't get married now, but,
Yeah.
save yourself for me.
Right. Well, once you did get officially engaged, how did you pick your wedding date? Because I know you graduated from high school in May or June of 1941.
In 41, we were dating. That's when I asked him to come to that picnic.
The church picnic.
A church picnic.
Mm-hmm.
And we hadn't been going together for, I don't know, 2 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
We had, I don't know why, we just, I know why.
Do you want to share it in front
It
of
was
the group?
my dad. We had just moved to Monaco Heights, just that very week. And
Did you move from East Rochester to Monaco is what you're
well, we
saying?
didn't Beaver first,
Okay.
and my mother didn't like it there.
So then you just moved to to
She's-
Monaco.
She said the air was bad,
Okay.
and it didn't come up. It didn't come up to the river. The bluff across there kept the good air out.
Okay. Well, so I interrupted you, but you said you had just moved to Monaco.
Yeah.
Something happened that your dad.
Well, George and I used to sit and talk about life and what was here before us. Real long thoughts like the poet said. Thoughts of the youth are yet long thoughts. And that's very true. And we were in the front porch, Grandma's front porch, sitting on the swing. And we must have been kissing because my dad came in. He's like, oh. Yeah. You're coming home, young lady. So I had to go home. And that was one of the nights in my life I'll never forget. That was the night of bed bugs.
Oh, bed bugs.
Oh, my mother didn't have enough beds for everybody. And so she bought the bed and the dresser from the woman that had the house before us.
Okay.
And so I went to bed that night, and of course I'm weeping and crying because I'm broken up with
You broke up with
George.
George, right?
And all of a sudden, I got a bite. And I called my mother. Said, what kind of a bite is this? And she said, oh my God, that's bed bugs. Oh, you're not coming out of this room, young lady. You have to stay in there all night. Oh, and I had to stay in that room with the bed bugs all night long. And next day, she took a candle and she burned every corner, every little crack that bed bugs could hide in. To kill bed bug, you have to get up to 600 degrees. Now that's pretty darn hot. And so that
You eventually came out, but what a way to remember the night that you and George broke up.
oh yeah.
Misery and more misery on top of it.
Oh yeah. It was terrible, but the worst night of my life.
Now, you two eventually got married in February of 1942.
The reason the reason we got married when we did is because of Pearl Harbor. And we knew that he'd have to go. He was of a perfect age. And so he wanted to be in the Navy. The Army could have grabbed him anytime they wanted, but he wanted to be in the Navy because of his uncle that was in the Navy. And so he had to get a release from the contract that he had with
American Bridge and
yeah.
then as a Navy contractor.
that,
Then he could join the Navy.
that he could join the Navy. But by that time, we were married in February. Well, then I wanted to have a baby right away. And we argued about it, and he said, no, I don't want to go away and leave you with that, responsibility. Oh, no, if you go away and never come back, I couldn't stand it. And so I got pregnant, and I had a real good doctor. And he went to the Navy, and before he went to the Navy, he talked to me at length about how difficult it was to be a Navy doctor. And I thought to myself, if George is in the Navy, maybe I could have a Navy doctor take care of me. And so that's what happened. He got put on station forces. He was up in Rhode Island.
Got stationed in Rhode Island.
And he took care of putting fresh water on the big ships that come in. And so I went up there the Memorial Day weekend. I went on this train.
In 1943.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you said you took a train?
People were sleeping up in the racks. Train was crowded. And I got a doctor. I can almost remember his name, but
So as a young woman, You, and I think we hear this over and over about the women of your generation, your braveness and your courage. You're a young woman, pregnant, and getting on a train all alone to get to where your husband was, to be able to have your baby up there.
Yeah.
And your mother, how did she feel about you leaving?
Oh, she didn't like it.
That's probably the first time you were ever far, far away from home.
Oh, that's for certain.
So you actually had your baby in Rhode Island
In Rhode
by a
Island.
Navy doctor,
Yeah.
and George was able to be there and meet his first son.
Well, they didn't
Eventually.
call him. They never told him. I told them to call, and nobody called him. And he didn't even know he was father until 5 o'clock. Or later than that. They waited till the baby was born, and then they told them.
Now you eventually came back and had a few more sons.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about motherhood, because you had said that that was your big dream in life, was to be a mother. So you must have been very joyful to have a house with 3 boys.
It was wonderful. I had 3 boys after George came home. When he came home, I was living in a shack. That's all you could call it, just a shack. It didn't have a basement, and but it had 3 rooms. It had the kitchen, and I had a sink with a French drain, and a bedroom that had that much room. There was a wall. Here's the bed. There's that much room to the next wall, and.
But you may do.
But I had to fix up all real cute. I had crisscross curtains, put up on the windows, and it looked real nice, and it was cozy. I have a early morning stove in there.
And what was that, an early morning stove?
It was a stove you could burn either wood or coal.
Okay.
And it kept that little place nice and warm.
Now, after the boys were all grown and out of the house, I know that you and once George retired, you two did a lot of traveling. Does anywhere in particular stand out in your mind? You have a favorite spot that the two of you vacationed in?
He came home one time and he said, I always promised you I'd take you to Hawaii. He said, how would you like to go to Tahiti?
Tahiti?
I said, oh, what are you talking about? And then he said, well, he said, we have a chance to go. He said, I can't remember the name of his friend. His wife was a nurse.
Okay.
And this was an airplane chartered by nurses and doctors. And they wanted to fill some empty seats. And so I said, oh boy, let's go. And I think it cost us $600 to go to Tahiti and back and stay in a hotel for a week.
That's fabulous.
And the breakfast was included.
Was it as beautiful as we imagined?
Oh, it was like Garden of Eden.
Really?
You get off the airplane and all you smell is beautiful flowers. and people are real nice and gentle, it's not very big.
Yes. I'll have to Google it and see some pictures. Now, I know that George passed away in 1984, and shortly after, you did something very unusual to keep busy. You got a new hobby after he passed away.
Oh,
Do you want to
yeah.
share a little bit
Oh, yeah.
of what that new hobby was and how your family reacted if you told them?
Yeah. Oh, well, what happened was Tom McBroom came to the house. He wanted to list my house. He was a real estate agent.
Okay.
He went to our church,
Mm-hmm.
and he gave me his card, and on it said pilot. I said, pilot, are you a pilot? He said, yeah. I said, oh, that's something I wanted to do all my life. I wanted to
Fly planes.
to fly a plane. And he said, well, you're not too old. And I said, oh, come on now. And he said, so-and-so was 65 or something. He just saw it yesterday. And I said, yeah, I'm interested. And he said, I'd advise you to join the club. That way, it'll be much easier for you. So I did.
And you joined the flying club.
And I took flying lessons,
Mm-hmm.
and I loved it.
Yes.
I just loved it. It was, I learned to know my way in day or at night. We went to the west of here,
Mm-hmm.
and we came back at night, and I could spot the mall.
Yes, the
You know,
Beaver Valley Mall you
and
flew over.
The mall wasn't too far from the airport,
Right.
and
And you enjoyed being up in the air and you weren't afraid?
no, I wasn't afraid. I loved it.
Goodness. That's fabulous.
And then my granddaughter came to me and she said, Grandma, she said, if you take care of my baby, I can graduate with a class.
Mm-hmm.
I won't have to take time off.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, I'd be delighted.
Even better than flying,
Oh,
being able to be with your great-grandbaby.
oh yeah. So I had, she'd bring her to me every morning
Mm-hmm.
with, in her little car seat, and she'd have her diaper bag all, everything I needed that day was in there.
How wonderful.
Then she'd come pick her up at night,
Mm-hmm.
and I kept her for 18 months.
How wonderful.
And of course, I did, the flying was, I'd much rather be a grandmother.
There you go. There you go. Well, I have a couple easy questions for you.
That's it.
First is, what do you think helped you to live such a long life?
I've taken care of my body,
Okay? Taking care of your body.
not overdoing it. So I've overdone it many times,
Mm-hmm.
but I've always tried to get rest afterwards and get back on my feet.
Okay? Very good.
But
Here's another.
and not worry.
Not worry.
I know, I didn't learn that. I didn't learn that young. It took me a long time to realize that worry
Mhm.
is not acceptable.
Worry is not acceptable.
No, because whatever happens is going to happen, and worrying is not going to change it. So
That's very wise.
it's a foolish waste of time. So after I realized that, I got to thinking about it. It seemed like, oh, and another thing, don't hold grudges. You do the suffering, and the person that offended you, who knows what they're doing? You're still grinding your teeth, and they're sitting around. What the heck? Let them do the worrying.
So wise.
So.
And then I'll give you a final easy question. What do you think was one of the most important inventions during your life, or something that was invented that you wouldn't want to live without now?
Electricity.
Yeah, electricity.
That would be the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the automobiles.
Yes.
They have, when I go back as far as I can remember, there were no cars at all.
Mm-hmm.
Just wagons with horses pulling them.
Yeah.
And all kinds of jokes
Mm-hmm.
about horses.
Now you're going to be surprised, but we've just run out of time.
Huh?
Can you believe it? We've just run out of time.
We did.
It happened that quickly, yes. So I think that, Elma has wonderful stories, and she loves company. So if you ever see Elma around, I'm sure she'll be happy to share other stories with you. But I'd like to ask you to help me thank Elma. And so that's for you. And then that's wonderful. And then we want to thank you all for attending and hearing her story. I'm just going to let you know that this Celebrate Aging series will continue through the end of September. We do have to take next week off due to an unexpected change in plans, but we'll be back in 2 weeks on the 22nd, on August 22nd. But as I mentioned, we're just so forever grateful for you to be here and to share your stories with us.
I forgot something.
Okay, you can share it.
I forgot about the square dancing.
Just tell us about square dancing.
Well, we had an empty nest. The boys were all gone,
Mm-hmm.
and we were trying to find something we could do.
Mm-hmm.
I was bowling, and George would go to the football games and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine was square dancing,
Mm-hmm.
and she said, "Why don't you come and take lessons?" And so we did, and we square danced for about 20 years.
Did you really?
We went to Atlantic City. There were 32,000 square dancers there. Pretty skirts all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
and petticoats. We wore those
Nice and full.
pretty petticoats, and so we were in that same building that they used for the Miss America contest.
Okay.
And they have a balcony there, and the floor was covered with the squares,
Mm-hmm.
with all these beautiful dresses.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had made a couple of dresses
Mm-hmm.
for the bicentennial,
Okay.
and that's when it was.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you again for sharing all these stories.
Thank you.